Okay, ever get that feeling like you're just drowning in information? Like prepping for some huge presentation at work or trying to get up to speed in a whole new field.
Oh, yeah.
Or even just, you stumble across some fascinating article,
Right.
but then you realize it's like a serious time commitment to really get through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've all been there.
Totally.
And that's exactly why we do the deep dive here.
That's right.
You send us the stuff you're wrestling with,
Yeah.
articles, studies, heck, even your own notes.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of act like your guides,
Exactly.
digging out those key insights, making those connections for you.
It's like a shortcut to being seriously in the know.
Right, like a fast track.
And finding those aha moments along the way.
Yeah. And today, we're going deep on something you sent our way.
You shared a really interesting paper, actually, from way back in 1996.
Oh, wow.
From the Educational Psychology Review
Okay.
by Patricia A. Alexander and Tamara L. Jetton.
Catchy title, too, I bet.
Well, it's called The Role of Importance and Interest in the Processing of Text.
So essentially how we absorb information when we read.
Exactly. And it dives into these two big players, importance, meaning what really matters in all that info.
Right, the key stuff.
And then interest, what actually hooks you in, keeps you reading.
What makes it personally relevant, right?
Right. Yes. And the paper digs into how those two impact what you actually learn, what sticks with you.
So our mission, if you will, on this deep dive
I like it.
is to figure out how importance and interest, these two ideas we think we know,
Right. Seems simple enough.
really work behind the scenes when we're trying to learn from what we read.
And by the time we're done, you should have some pretty solid takeaways.
Tools you can actually use to learn more effectively.
Exactly.
So importance, like at first glance, it seems pretty straightforward.
Right. It's the value of something, how significant it is.
But Alexander and Jetton point out that even defining this can get tricky.
And the way researchers define it actually changes the whole game. The questions they ask, the results they get, it all stems from that initial definition.
So it's not as cut and dry as we might assume.
Not at all. There's been a lot of debate, even disagreement on what importance truly means.
Interesting.
Like everyone has an intuition about it, but nailing it down scientifically is harder.
So how do they break it down in the paper?
Well, they highlight three main perspectives on importance. One determined by the author, one by the reader, and one by the teacher.
Okay, so let's start with the author. How do they signal what's important?
So author-determined importance, sometimes called structural importance, is all about the text itself.
Makes sense.
The main ideas, the core arguments, the stuff the author's really trying to get across.
Right, their main points.
And the structure of the text often signals this. Think headings, subheadings, that kind of organization.
So it's like a built-in roadmap.
Exactly. And early research found that people who were better at picking up on this structure,
They were better at understanding and remembering.
spot on. It's like they could see the framework, so they grasped the key building blocks better.
Interesting.
And they found that well-written texts, what they called considerate texts, made it easier to recall important info.
Considerate, meaning well-organized, I'm assuming?
Precisely. And even more, they found that if you train people to identify these text structures,
Their comprehension improved.
yes, it's like giving them that map to navigate the information.
That makes a ton of sense. So what about reader-determined importance? How is that different?
This gets into a really interesting territory. This perspective draws on ideas from literary criticism and psycholinguistics.
Those are some big words.
But the basic idea is that importance isn't just sitting there in the text waiting to be discovered.
Okay.
It's created through this interaction between you, the reader, and the text itself.
So what's important to me as a reader might not be important to you.
Exactly. It becomes much more personal, shaped by your own experiences, your perspectives.
Like, two people could read the same article and come away with different takeaways about what was most important.
Precisely. And the paper points out that in this view, the line between importance and interest gets really blurry.
They almost become the same thing.
Almost. And interestingly, this perspective initially focused a lot on narrative texts, stories.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because what grabs you in a story is often subjective.
It is. Like what details you latch onto, what resonates with you emotionally.
Yeah, that's totally influenced by your own life, your own concerns.
Exactly. But even within this reader-determined camp, a more moderate view emerged.
Trying to find a middle ground, I guess.
Right. They acknowledge that text features do play a role, but still emphasize the individual nature of processing.
So it's like a combination of what's in the text and what's in your head.
Exactly. And this led to research on how your prior knowledge shapes what you see as important or salient.
Okay, so what you already know influences what stands out to you.
Yes. And studies showed this pretty clearly.
Like, an expert in a field might pick up on the significance of something that a novice would completely miss.
That's a great example. It's like having a filter or a spotlight highlighting certain parts of the text for you.
I like that analogy.
And this also ties into research on selective attention.
How much brain power we devote to different parts of what we're reading.
Exactly. And the assumption is we focus more on what we perceive as important.
Makes sense.
But, and here's where it gets interesting, they found that even if readers paid more attention to structurally important information,
So the stuff the author highlighted, the main points,
right, they didn't always learn or remember it better than something they found personally interesting.
even if it wasn't as important in the grand scheme of the text.
Yes, it's like our brains sometimes prioritize what intrigues us, even if it's not the most crucial information.
That's fascinating. So what about this third category, teacher-determined importance?
This one's really important for anyone in a learning environment, whether it's a formal classroom or even just self-study with some kind of course.
Right, because it brings in the role of the instructor or the guide.
Exactly. The learning environment, especially a classroom, has a huge influence on what students consider important.
Because there are external factors at play, like assignments and tests.
Precisely. Think about it, what gets tested often becomes your working definition of important.
Even if it doesn't perfectly match what the author emphasized or what you personally found interesting.
That's the key. And the paper highlights that this is a crucial insight because what gets tested isn't always what's most important for deep understanding.
It's like learning how to play the game of school, figuring out what the teacher values and prioritizing that.
Exactly. And research shows that if you're aware of the task, aware of what's expected of you.
You're more likely to remember information related to that task.
Yes. But the paper also cautions that sometimes what teachers emphasize might not be the most critical information in the long run.
It might be interesting, but not essential for mastery of the subject.
Precisely. And they point to the problem of seductive details, which we'll get into more later.
Okay, teaser alert. So we've got these three different angles on importance: the authors, the readers, and the teachers.
Each one highlighting different factors that shape how we engage with and learn from text.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about interest.
I'm good.
Alexander and Jedden point out that there's been a surge of research on interest in recent years.
And like importance, they break it down into different types, focusing on whether the source of interest is internal or external.
Okay, so what's inside us versus what's in the environment?
Right. The main distinction is between individual interest and situational interest.
Okay, let's break those down.
Individual interest is that deep-seated, long-lasting passion for a topic or an activity.
It's like your thing, what you geek out about.
Exactly. It stems from repeated experiences, and it tends to be pretty enduring.
Like a part of your personality almost?
In a way, yes. And it's often linked to strong emotions, what the paper calls affective valences.
Meaning the feelings, the positive or negative vibes you get from a subject?
You got it. Think about your love for astronomy or your fascination with history.
Yeah, those are things that pull you in and keep you engaged over time.
Exactly. That's individual interest.
So then what is situational interest?
Situational interest is more fleeting. It's triggered by something in your immediate environment, in the context.
Like a kitschy headline or a dramatic story.
Exactly. Certain themes, vivid descriptions, connections to your own life, those can all spark situational interest.
But it's more surface level, and it doesn't last as long.
Right. Change the situation and the interest might disappear.
Like that super interesting anecdote in a textbook.
Yes, it grabs your attention in the moment, but you might not actually care about the broader subject.
So it's sparked by how the information is presented rather than the information itself.
Exactly. And the paper makes a point that even situational interest isn't just one thing. There's the catching aspect, what initially grabs your attention, and then there's the holding aspect.
What keeps you reading?
Precisely. And good teachers, for example, need to master both.
They need to hook the students in and then keep them engaged.
That's the key. And they cited this study that identified several sources of situational interest.
Like what?
Things like ease of comprehension, how well the text is organized, vivid language, if it makes you think, evokes emotions, and even your prior knowledge.
Okay, so Some overlap there with individual interest and importance.
Definitely. And they found that the more interested readers perceived the text to be.
The better their recall was.
Yes. So situational interest, when harnessed well, can definitely boost learning.
All right, so we've got individual interest, the deep-seated passion, and situational interest, the more fleeting spark.
And both can influence how we process information, but in different ways.
Right, so now for the big question. How do importance and interest work together?
That's where it gets really interesting.
And Alexander and Jetton emphasize that the type of text you're reading has a huge impact on this relationship.
The form itself really matters. They look at narratives, expository texts, and mixed texts.
Okay, remind me what those are again.
So narratives are stories, expository texts are designed to inform, and mixed texts blend the two.
Like biographies, right?
Perfect example. Now, one of the more consistent findings is that importance and interest tend to converge in narratives.
Meaning what's important is also what's interesting.
Exactly. But this pattern diverges, sometimes significantly, when we look at expository and mixed texts.
Okay, so why does that make sense for narratives?
Well, think about the elements of a good story. The plot points, the character development, the climax.
The stuff that makes it a page-turner?
Exactly. Those elements are usually both the most important parts for understanding the story.
And the parts that keep you hooked.
Right. The paper even suggests that the familiar structure of stories, that story schema with its setting, characters, plot,
makes those important elements more recognizable and memorable.
Yes. Plus, we often read stories for enjoyment, so our reader-determined importance aligns with what we find engaging.
So it's a natural fit.
But expository texts, those are a different ballgame.
In what way?
Well, the paper notes that a lot of expository information is rated as just not that interesting.
Even if it's important?
Yeah, even then. And when some of it is found interesting, it doesn't necessarily correlate with what's considered important.
So you might get drawn to the fun facts, but miss the main point.
Exactly. And this is a real challenge in education, where expository text is often the primary way we learn new information.
Because if it's not engaging, it's harder to absorb.
Precisely. And this leads to one of the biggest aha moments from this paper.
Which is?
Those fascinating tidbits, those interesting side notes that we often gravitate towards.
Especially in dense material?
Yes. Research actually shows they can sabotage your learning
Really?
by distracting you from the core information.
So it's like those shiny objects that pull your attention away from the real prize.
Exactly. It's counterintuitive, but those interesting but unimportant details can actually hinder understanding.
So maybe I should rethink all that highlighting I do.
It's worth considering. And this is even more pronounced with mixed texts.
Because they have that blend of narrative and expository elements.
Right. Readers might find a lot of the information interesting, but not necessarily important.
Which brings us to those seductive details you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Seductive details are those bits of information, like anecdotes, quotes, vivid descriptions.
The stuff that makes you go, ooh, that's cool.
Exactly, but they're actually low in importance to the main message.
Just like clickbait for your brain.
I like that. And research shows they can have a surprisingly negative impact on learning.
It seems counterintuitive, right? You'd think making learning materials more interesting would be a good thing.
You would. But studies show that these seductive details can actually distract readers.
Even skilled adult readers.
Even them. They get pulled in by the interesting but unimportant stuff, and then they have a harder time recalling the key ideas.
So it's not just about making things interesting. It's about making the right things interesting.
That's a great point. And the paper emphasizes that this seductive detail effect is worse with expository and mixed texts.
Because the interesting stuff isn't as tightly integrated with the important stuff.
Precisely. It's like those interesting bits are off on their own little tangents, distracting you from the main path.
So what can we do about this? How do we navigate this tension between importance and interest?
Well, the paper highlights the crucial role of your existing knowledge.
So what you already know coming into the text.
Yes. Your subject matter knowledge, both about the specific topic and the broader field, really shapes how you perceive both importance and interest.
Especially when dealing with those trickier expository or mixed texts.
Exactly. When you have a strong knowledge base, you're better equipped to identify what's structurally important.
Like you can see the author's roadmap more clearly.
Yes. And you're less likely to be swayed by those seductive details.
It's like you have a filter that helps you separate the wheat from the chaff.
Perfect analogy. You can see how the new information fits into the bigger picture, what pieces are truly essential.
Like having a mental map of the subject.
Exactly. And the paper notes that for readers with high subject matter knowledge, individual interest seems to be a stronger driver than situational interest.
because they're already invested in the topic.
Yes. Their passion for the subject guides their attention.
So building that knowledge base is key.
It's fundamental, and this ties into findings that subject matter knowledge and interest are often closely linked.
The more you know, the more you're likely to be interested, and vice versa.
Precisely. It's a virtuous cycle.
So we've talked about author-determined importance, reader-determined importance, and now we need to circle back to that third one.
Teacher-determined importance or instructional importance.
Right. As we discussed earlier, what teachers emphasize can really override everything else.
It can. The paper mentions this fascinating study where they asked junior high teachers and their students to come up with questions about a passage on Stephen Hawking.
Okay, so what did they find?
Well, the students were surprisingly good at predicting what kinds of questions their teachers would ask on a quiz.
Like they knew what the teacher valued?
Exactly. But here's the catch. The content of those questions often didn't match up with the most important information in the passage.
Meaning the students were learning what the teacher wanted, not necessarily the core concepts.
That's right. They were learning to play the game of school, but maybe not gaining the deepest understanding.
And was this driven by teachers focusing on seductive details?
Sometimes, yes. The study found that teachers sometimes emphasize those interesting but less crucial tidbits.
Like they were unintentionally leading the students astray.
In a way, yes. It highlights how powerful that instructional emphasis can be.
So even if students aren't great at picking out what's structurally important,
They're really good at picking up on what the teacher signals as important.
and that can shape their entire learning experience.
It absolutely can. And they did a follow-up experiment with science teachers, which found something really interesting.
What was that?
Only the teacher with strong teaching skills and deep science knowledge consistently focused on the important scientific content.
So it wasn't just about being a good teacher, it was about really understanding the subject matter.
Exactly. And the students in that class were better at identifying the truly important concepts.
Whereas the other teachers, that their focus was more scattered, sometimes on superficial stuff or those seductive details.
Precisely. It shows how important it is for teachers to have both pedagogical skills and deep content knowledge.
That's a powerful combination.
It is. And the paper also points out that some of the debates and the research around interest and knowledge might stem from researchers looking at different kinds of interests and knowledge.
Like, are they talking about situational interests or individual interest?
Right, or general knowledge versus specific subject matter knowledge.
So more precise definitions would help clear up some of the confusion.
Absolutely. And they highlight a gap in the research, a lack of developmental studies
Anything.
looking at how these dynamics of importance and interest change over time.
As we grow and learn.
Exactly. Like, how does individual interest develop? Can reader-determined importance evolve into a deeper interest?
Those are big questions.
They are, and they're crucial for understanding how we learn across our lifespan.
The paper also points out that most research is focused on traditional linear texts.
But with the rise of hypermedia, those non-linear multimedia environments.
We need to understand how importance and interest work in those contexts.
Exactly. How do you determine what's important when you have so many different pathways?
It's a whole new landscape.
It is. And the paper advocates for moving more research into real-world classrooms.
Seeing how these dynamics play out in the messiness of actual teaching and learning.
Right, because controlled experiments are valuable, but they don't always capture the complexity of real-life learning.
And they suggest exploring more academic domains, not just science and social studies.
Yes. Different subjects might have different patterns in how importance and interest interact.
So a call for broader research.
Exactly. And for more creative ways to assess learners' importance and interest before they engage with a text.
Not just after they finish reading.
Right. So, to sum it all up, what are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, remember that importance can be defined in different ways. By the author, by you, the reader, or by your teacher.
And interest comes in different flavors, too, from long-term passion to fleeting curiosity.
And the type of text you're reading really matters.
It does. Narratives tend to align importance and interest, while expository texts often see them diverge.
And watch out for those seductive details that can pull you off track.
Especially in those expository and mixed texts.
Your existing knowledge is key. It helps you filter information and identify what's truly important.
Especially in complex subjects.
And don't underestimate the influence of your teachers or guides. They shape your focus more than you might realize.
All of this raises an important question for you to ponder.
Which is,
How will you approach learning differently moving forward?
should we be consciously analyzing what makes information important or interesting to us?
It's worth considering. How can understanding instructional importance be useful even outside of formal education?
Could being more aware of those seductive details help us stay focused on what truly matters?
Think about how these ideas can apply to your own learning habits.
Because ultimately, it's about becoming more mindful, more strategic learners.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope it's given you some valuable tools for navigating the world of information and becoming a more effective learner.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.